Hello everyone, welcome back to Luke's TV Talk, where I go over the most recent TV I've been watching and what my thoughts were on it. So for this episode, I'll be looking at the first two episodes of The Rings of Power that premiered on Amazon Prime. But just before I start, I uploaded a review of She-Hulk Episode 3 yesterday, so if you're interested, make sure to give that a watch. And also make sure to like and subscribe to keep up to date with all future uploads. Okay, so to start off, I'll give some of the plot of the first episode. Galadriel is shown in the land of the elves with her brother, when they come across an evil being, Morgoth, and the elves travel to face him. The elves travel to Middle-earth and fight his forces of orcs for centuries. Eventually, the sorcerer Sauron takes control of the orc masses, and over the centuries, the elves search for them, but find nothing but a mark left by him. We're introduced to the Half-Foots and their small village, where they hide from outsiders. We're also introduced to an elf watchtower that patrols the land of men, but they now have been recalled. One of these elves, Arondir, tries to connect with the humans, and after signs of corruption in the land and animals, or some type of poison, he goes on a journey to find out what is the cause. Galadriel returns to the High Elf Kingdom, where she reunites with Elrond, and he convinces her to accept the king's offer to return to the Undying Land. Galadriel doesn't believe the evil is truly gone, so jumps ship to return to Middle-earth, and to find out definitively if Sauron and his forces are still there. The Half-Foot Elenor finds a meteor crater and finds a stranger in the centre of it. I had a lot of fun with this first episode. Obviously, it brings you right back into the world of Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings. It has all the aesthetic stuff you'd love from it. I know at the start of the episode what one of the main drawbacks some people may think of is a lot of exposition set up in the episode. But I think it's like it introduced you back into the world of Middle-earth. So I kind of have a balancing act with it. It was like it's kind of a negative, but it's also a really cool thing to have. Like draws you back in and stuff. Like the characters are awesome. The costumes, the setting, especially elves. The elves have great costumes. Their cities are lovely. Their forests are like bountiful and beautiful. Even the villages of men, even though they're a bit down and dirty, like you still get this setting and the world they're trying to build in this episode. And like I said, the world building with the narration is really cool, especially at the start where they introduce the Undying Land and the world where Morgoth is fighting the elves. It's a war-torn land full of death, and now the world's calmed down a bit more, it seems, but there's always an underlying threat that a lot of people don't want to admit is still there. But people, or elves like Galadriel, know that there's something still there, and they know they have to stand up to it and find it and stop it definitively. So obviously the different races make the world of Middle-earth what it is. It's so much fun to see men, elves, and Half-Foots all kind of not intermingling yet, but shown to be in this same world, and eventually they're all going to cross paths and the stories will connect, which is going to be really cool. So I understand where a lot of people are going to find issues with this, where a lot of it is like set up introductions and like, okay, so this is where the series is going. So the episode is kind of slow in that sense, where it's like, okay, here's one character, this is what they're doing, here's another character, blah blah blah. But I loved it overall in that essence. So I think it was a good first episode to reintroduce people back into Middle-earth, and hopefully over the rest of the season, the craziness and action will build up. Okay, and for now, the Rings of Power episode 2. Elenor, the Half-Foot, sets the Meteor Man up in a tent, and the next day he wakes up, but they cannot understand each other, and he has strange powers. What I'm sensing from the stranger, he's kind of like a wizard, because the way he acts and everything he does, it's got a magical feel to it. Like when he shouts, the trees bend towards him, and later in the episode he speaks to bugs like what Gandalf did with the moth. So it's like, I wonder if he's a wizard and he's like one of the first or something, I don't know. But it's really interesting and a mystery. Arondir investigates an abandoned village on fire and discovers an underground tunnel. He searches them but is chased and presumed captured. So when he goes down into the tunnels, he only has like a little lantern, and there's a lot of shadows and darkness, and he constantly sees things moving around. He sees like hands poking out, and it is creepy. And especially when he gets captured, the hands like come from roots, like from behind him and stuff. It's a really creepy scene, and I feel like they're definitely trying to give the orcs and the dark side in this series a lot more frightening feel to it. Galadriel spends most of the episode swimming and eventually gets her way onto a raft with some lost travellers. They are eventually attacked, with her and a human the only ones surviving. So basically, at the end of the first episode, Galadriel jumped off the boat. She basically swims and finds this people that are stuck on a raft who are then attacked by a fish, what they call a worm for some reason. And eventually, the human survivor says how he was attacked by orcs in his land, and this basically sets Galadriel off, and she's like, orcs? So that basically confirms to her that Sauron is still there, even if it's somewhere like deep in the Southlands, I think it was called, where the humans are. He's obviously hiding out there, and that's where they're going to make their stand or something. So it's going to be interesting to see her journey from here, because at the end of the episode they were picked up by a boat from somewhere, we're not too sure. But it's definitely going to be set up where she's going to get back to land, set off on a journey, and find Sauron and stop him from doing whatever he's going to do. Elrond visits the dwarves to ask for help from his friend Prince Durin, but after 20 years he is bitter towards him. So basically, Elrond hasn't seen him in 20 years, and for an elf that's not long, but for a dwarf it is long, and he holds a grudge that he's missed everything in his life. His wedding, his children being born, and he thinks, why haven't you come to see me in 20 years? And Elrond's like, it's only 20 years. So they have a lot of the episode trying to understand each other, because Elrond obviously is like, 20 years isn't much. Whereas for Durin, it's a good chunk of his life. So that's why he holds the bitterness towards him. And it's nice to see over the episode they kind of rebuild that trust, especially with Durin's wife. And I'm looking forward to seeing how their relationship continues to improve. And obviously, because they're going to build this watchtower for, I think it was Celebrimbor, the tower that's going to become the main forge for the elves. So Durin's wife eventually convinces him to help Elrond. So Durin visits his father, and the father, at the end of his scene, opens a little chest, and something was glowing inside. So I wonder if that's going to be what helps Elrond to do the task he needs to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how that story develops as well. The human village is eventually attacked by an orc from an underground tunnel. So the villagers flee to the watchtower. So yeah, this scene was incredibly creepy, especially compared to what they've shown orcs to be in the films, where they were a lot of bumbling idiots and kind of snarling beasts. Where in this, it was like the humans were hiding, and it was almost like a horror film, where the orcs are like skulking around and sniffing out. It was really creepy, and I'm glad they're trying to make the orcs a bit more frightening in this series, because obviously they look terrifying, and it makes it so much more menacing when they're just skulking around. And they were shown to be strong, because it launched a table halfway across the room. So they're definitely going to be a creepy element to the series with the orcs, and I can't wait to see how they make them look creepy, especially to the humans. So in this episode, there's a lot more intriguing story developments, like the orcs that are building tunnels underground. So maybe that's to infiltrate villages all over the lands, and they're going to pop up and just take over and kill everyone. And that's how Sauron is going to make his stand in the Southlands. I'm looking forward to seeing how Galadriel makes her return to Middle-earth, because obviously she's been stuck at sea for the whole episode. So she's going to come back and set on a new journey to hunt down Sauron. So that's going to be a cool new story for her to take up. And then the story with Elenor and this stranger that could possibly be a wizard. I'm looking to see how that's going to develop, because he's still not a completely trustworthy character, because when he was using the little fireflies to like map out the constellation he's looking for, they all died. So I'm not quite sure if he's a good character or is in a grey area or something. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. Great character interactions, especially with Durin and Elrond. Like, they're almost like a strange family, and Durin is basically like, "Why are you here? Go away!" And they build up that relationship, which was nice to see. We get to see the Arondir, the elf, like going on a journey to another village, and we get to see how the corruption and the death that Sauron brings is starting to affect the land. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the world is affected by this, because you kind of saw it in the High Elf City, where the leaf the king held was starting to get corrupted. The stranger, how he's corrupting things, and if he's the bad or he's a good guy, we just don't know yet. but it's going to continue to affect the wider world, and it's going to be good to see how that happens. Again, the orcs are pretty scary, which I'm glad to see, because they've always been like creepy characters, but they've never been like actual scary, and I feel like this series is going to make them a lot more threatening and terrifying to watch, and I'm looking forward to see how they become like these intimidating opponents that are scary to fight, so it's going to be cool. The dwarves were great additions to the story again, so in the first episode we met all the other races, and now we'll meet dwarves as well, and the dwarven city, I think it was Dunedain, I think it was called the city, and I'm really looking forward to see how the dwarves and elves partner up and to create this forge for the elves, and it's going to be really cool to see the dwarves put their skills to work. I think overall the stranger is the most interesting loose thread, because he's the one that's shrouded in the most mystery, because we know what Galadriel's mission is, we know what Elrond and Durin's mission is, Arondir, so he's been captured, but we basically know by who. But the stranger is the one that's full of mystery. Like, where's that going to lead, and is he good, is he bad, because he seems to not have any memory, so it's going to be cool to see how that develops. Like I said, the unfortunate part of this episode was that Galadriel was basically sidelined on a raft for the majority of the episode, so she's out of the story. She was basically just drifting on the ocean, and I feel like once she gets back to land, that's where the story's going to really pick up, because I feel like she is the top main character, and when she gets back into the story, it's really going to go into full swing, and she's straight for Sauron. It's going to be a really cool journey for her to fight the orcs and stuff, so I'm looking forward to seeing her back in the main swift of the story. But yeah, I enjoyed the episodes overall. I know that it was a bit slower because it was obviously reintroducing the characters and the world of Middle-earth. And the second episode obviously got more into the story with the characters, because we now got a basis, so they set the story up, and now we're slowly starting to get into it, and hopefully in episode 3 we go full sprint into the world of Middle-earth and the stories that we're going to be told. But yeah, I loved it overall, and I recommend you give it a try, because it's only the first 2 episodes, and it's going to be a lot more story to be told over the next few weeks. So give it a try if you are interested. That's all from me, so if you did like the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to keep up to date with all future videos. But until then, I will see you next time.